iOS 17 has more than 400 new features, but it also includes several new settings that you probably did not even know existed. So in this video, I'm going to show you 24 settings that you need to change immediately after installing iOS 17 on your iPhone. The first setting you want to change in iOS 17 is something to bring back the feel of 3D touch. So to do that, we're going to go into our settings, go to accessibility, and then to touch, and then to haptic touch. And you will notice that there is a default option now. In iOS 16, it was just fast or slow. Well, in iOS 17, default was iOS 16's fast. So now that we have this fast option, we have more of a 3D touch-like feel. So when we haptic press on something, it's much quicker than it was in iOS 16. So if you're a fan of peeking and popping and haptic pressing on things to see previews, now this setting makes it much faster and much more enjoyable and useful. The next setting you need to change in iOS 17 is related to the camera and Pro RAW photos. So if you go into your settings and go to camera and then to formats, right here under photo capture, we have a brand new option in iOS 17 for the Pro RAW default. And if you go into that, here's where you can select which format you would like to choose. Now keep in mind, this is only available for the iPhone 14 Pro and Pro Max and the iPhone 15 series. But in here, we have something that's really a massive deal for the iPhone in general, because before, if we wanted to shoot in 48 megapixels, we had to shoot in Pro RAW, in RAW format, and that would take up 75 megabytes per photo. But now with iOS 17, we get the ability to shoot at the full 48 megapixels, and it only takes up 5 megabytes. And that's because we are shooting it in the HEIF format instead of the Pro RAW format. So I would highly recommend changing this, and you can also go into the camera application, and now up here in the top right hand corner, you will see that we have an option for HEIF Max. You could turn that on or off, and then if you tap and hold on that, you have the option to choose your setting on the fly. So if you want to switch it over to regular Pro RAW, you can do that. Or if you just want to switch it over to RAW 12 megapixels, you could do that from there as well. The next setting you want to change is auto deleting verification codes after using autofill. So in iOS 17, you not only get autofill for messages, but also when you get a verification code sent to your email, you can now autofill that directly on websites. However, you could never auto delete those messages before. They would always clog up your messages, but now you can change that. To do this, go to your settings and then go to passwords. From here, you will see password options. Go to password options, and then down here we have a new toggle that says clean up automatically. Turn that on, and it will automatically delete your verification codes in messages after using autofill. So this also applies to mail. It will auto delete those messages as long as you tap on this and enter that in to the field when you're in Safari. Now, of course, if you still need to access those messages for whatever reason after they're deleted, you can go into the recently deleted folder in messages or in mail, and you can recover them from there. The next setting you need to absolutely change if you have Apple Music is crossfade. So crossfade is where one song kind of fades into the other. The other one starts before the previous one ends. It sounds really good, and this is something you absolutely need to have if you have Apple Music on your device. So if you go into settings and then to music, down here you will see a crossfade toggle. Make sure to turn that on and then adjust your crossfade settings. So I prefer mine at 7 seconds, but you could do it anywhere from 1 second all the way up to 12 seconds. And I'd recommend just playing around with this and seeing which one you like the best, but definitely add that if you use Apple Music. Now, we did not get a redesigned control center despite some of the early rumors, but we do have a new toggle in the control center. So if you go to your settings and then go to control center, if you have an Apple Watch, you will have a new toggle for Ping My Watch. So you can now ping your watch straight from the control center. Next up, you need to change your ringtones in iOS 17 because if you haven't heard yet, we have a lot of new ones. So if you go into settings and then to sounds and haptics, first off, we have a new section here for haptics where you can change when you want your haptics to play, whether you're in silent mode or not. You can change that right there. But the important part here is under ringtones and text tones, we have all new sounds. So if you want to hear all the new ringtones, you can go ahead to my iOS 17 What's New video where I played every single single one of these for you, but just check these out. There are new ringtones, and even the reflection default ringtone that you knew before has changed in iOS 17. So go ahead, you might want to actually not be on silent for once because these ringtones are actually pretty good. So check them out. We do also have new text tones as well. If you go into the text tone section, pretty much all of these are brand new in iOS 17. Now, if you have the AirPods Pro 1 or 2, the AirPods 3, or the AirPods Max, you will have a new setting in iOS 17 under call controls. So if you go to your AirPods settings and then go right here under call controls, we have a new mute and unmute section. If you go into there, you can see that we can now mute and unmute a phone call or FaceTime call by simply pressing on the stem of an AirPod. Now, by default, this is set to press once, but I found that gave me a lot of trouble and I accidentally muted people a lot. So I would recommend maybe considering changing this to press twice. Of course, you might have to experiment with this, but just know that this setting is here in iOS 17 and you might want to change that. Now, one of the biggest new features in iOS 17 is this right here, where you can name drop and airdrop by simply putting two phones close together. However, you might not always want that going off. Now, it's pretty cool, especially at first, but it might get annoying after a while because anytime you put your phones that close together, it just starts initiating a transfer. And for me, with a lot of devices, it's gotten kind of annoying. And if you're around a lot of friends, this could also be kind of annoying sometimes. So if you want to turn this off, you can do that in settings. So if you go to settings and then to general and then to airdrop, right here, we have a toggle for start sharing by bringing devices together. If you don't want that to be a feature on your phone, if you don't want that to trigger every time somebody puts their phone next to yours, you can turn that off right here. The next setting you need to change is related to a big feature inside of the Messages application. So if you go into your Messages and tap on the plus to the left of the text field and then swipe down to go to Check-in, which is a brand new feature that allows you to let your friends and loved ones know when you've arrived to a certain destination. So this is the first pop-up you'll see after getting this, and you'll need to configure this to your liking. So tap on continue, and now you get the choice to choose between limited or full in terms of the data that you're going to share with the other person. And the settings here are pretty straightforward, but you want to make sure to select whichever one fits the person that you are, doing your check-in with. If it's somebody that you're really close with, of course, it doesn't matter if they know, the last time that your phone was unlocked or your Apple Watch was removed. But if it's somebody you're not super close with, you may only want them to have a limited view of your data. Like they can only see your current location and then details about your battery and network signal. So whichever one you choose, go ahead and select it, and then you can tap on continue and you can kind of see a little rundown of how this works. But after this, you can go ahead into the settings and change this later on as well as to what your default will be. So go into your settings and go to Messages, and then down in Messages, we have a new section called Check-in, and you can see the data is set to limited. Now, if you tap on that, here's where you can change it to full. So if you want to change it back and forth between the two, here's where you can do so. You also get a little map, a little graphic here showing you sample data as to what limited and full look like. Also in the Messages application, if you tap on that plus to the left right there, you will notice that you kind of have a lot of fluff here. There's a lot of applications that you may not use. You may not even want these being in here. Like for instance, I don't want TikTok in here. I don't want Alpenglow in here. I don't want Citymapper. I can turn those off. So if we go into our settings and then go to Messages and then to iMessage apps, from here, we can toggle off certain applications that we do not want showing up in the app drawer. So if I turn off Citymapper, for example, if I turn off TikTok, for example, now when I go back to Messages and I refresh this, you will see that those are no longer there and it looks much cleaner and it's applications I actually want to use. And if you want to move one of these applications to the top screen, like this section right here, you can do that. Like Check-in is a great feature. If you want to move that, you can just tap and hold right here and then kind of just drag it up and you can put it wherever you want. So you can move these around very easily and very freely by just tapping and holding and then moving them. One of the headlining features in iOS 17 is contact posters, and you should go ahead and change this right once you install iOS 17 so others can see your contact poster when you call or when you call them. So if you go to the edit up in the top right of the phone application, you will see it says name and photo right here. Tap on that and that will take you to the page where you can customize your contact poster. So from here, just tap on edit and you'll want to go ahead ahead and customize your contact poster here with one of the pre-selected ones, or you can create a new one where you can use a memoji, a monogram, or one of your photos. So I can select my photo here and I can move it to wherever I would like. I could tap on the text and change the color and the font for that. And remember, this is what other people are going to see when you call. So you can go ahead and change the background as well. You can make the background really cool like that. And I can tap on these three dots to add the depth effect. You have all these settings you can change right here. And once you have the contact poster, you can preview it, and then you will select your profile picture as well, or your contact photo, which is the little circle that people see. So you could choose a different photo, or you can continue with the one that you just set. And by the way, you could also set up somebody else's contact poster, like if you want theirs to show up a certain way, by going to their contact and then going to edit, and then going to edit right under their name, and then you have the option to add a contact poster for them. Now, one of the biggest changes in iOS 17 in terms of typing is predictive text that is now in line when you're typing. You can see the gray right there, and if we double press on the spacebar, that puts it in. And I have to say that this is better than it ever has been on iOS. I actually enjoy predictive text in iOS 17. However, if you're a fast and a very efficient typer, you might want to consider turning this off, as it will probably not really help you out any, and it could just mess you up when you're typing. So to change that, just go into your settings, go into general, and then to keyboard, and then right here you will see that we have a section for predictive. This is enabled by default. You might want to disable that depending on the type of typer that you are. And on the flip side, this is also where you should go if you had this disabled before. If you had this disabled in iOS 16, it probably carried over to iOS 17 and it was also disabled. So you might want to go ahead and enable this in iOS 17, because again, predictive text is actually good now. It was not good in iOS 16, but it's actually good in iOS 17. So toggle that on or off depending on what you had it set to previously. And by the way, if you want to reference this video later down the road and you maybe prefer a written format, I will have a PDF version of this video available to Brandon Ultra members. You can learn more about joining the membership down in the description below. Another one of the big changes in iOS 17 is the ability to access Siri without saying hey beforehand. But if you don't like that, you can change it. So if you go into settings and then go down to Siri and search, and then go to listen for, you might want to select either Hey S or just turn this off. Now, I will say that just saying the S word is fine. I've not really had too many false triggers, so it's not as bad as some people might think. But if you want to change that, you can do so right here. The next setting you might want to change is the sensitive content warning. So if you go to your settings and privacy and security, and then go down to the bottom, you will see a new section called sensitive content warning. So with this, you can turn this on, and this will detect nude photos and videos before they are viewed on your iPhone. And here is what that will look like inside of the Messages application. For example, you get a little warning and you can tap on show to show the image, but it will say this may be sensitive. Now, you can also change that like on a per app basis. So if you only want it to be in Messages and Video Messages, for example, you can do that, but you could also turn it on or off for AirDrop and for contacts. Next up, let's talk about how far away you keep your phone from your face when you're using it. So if you go to settings and go to screen time and then go down, you will notice that we have a section here called screen distance, and it says reduce eye strain. If you go into that, that is off by default, but you can go ahead and enable this to reduce eye strain and the risk of myopia in children. The next thing you want to do is create Safari profiles. So I know this is a boring feature for some people, but you want to do this for multiple reasons. So for instance, let's just go into our settings and then go down to Safari, and then down here you will see that we have profiles, and from here you'll probably only have one by default, but if you tap on new profile, you can name it. Let's just say school, for example. If you only want to have certain things in Safari when you're at school, you could do this. We'll select school, choose a color. You could change the favorites that are in, the favorites bar that's in that specific profile. You could also open new tabs in a specific section, a certain page or the start page for that specific profile. And then when you tap on done and then go into it, you have additional options in here where you can enable or disable certain extensions for that specific profile. And when you go into Safari and then go to the window view, you will access those profiles by tapping that guy in the bottom. And down here at the bottom, you have profiles, and you can switch to one of those profiles very easily. And by the way, I do have one other setting that you might want to change inside of Safari as well. And that has to do with private browsing. So if I go to private browsing, for example, take a look at that. It is locked. I need to put in my passcode or scan my face to get in. Now, some people might like that, but you might also find that annoying. So you could turn that on or off by going back into your Safari settings right here. And then if you go down under privacy and security, you will see require Face ID to unlock private browsing. You can turn that on or off. Now there's another setting in here as well. If you go up, we have private search engine right here. If you tap on that, you can change what the search engine is by default when you're in a private window specifically. So if I wanted this to be DuckDuckGo, for example, I could set that to be for private searching only, whereas in my regular, when I'm in a regular window that's not private, it's on Google. So that's a nice additional setting to have there. The next setting you want to change has to do with the camera. So have you ever gone to take a picture and you're kind of holding it like this, but you're wondering if you're maybe up on one side, if it's not leveled out? Well, now in iOS 17, you can actually have a level built in to the camera app. So if you go to your settings and then go down to camera, down here under composition, we have a new toggle for level. That is disabled by default, but you might want to go ahead and enable that to get a leveler on your viewfinder when you go to take a video or a photo. So one of the biggest, if not the biggest feature in iOS 17 is standby mode. So you guys already know what standby mode is, but there is a little setting in here that you might not have enabled that you might want to consider changing. So if you go into your settings and then go to standby, there's a toggle down here called show preview on tap only. So what this does is it will hide any preview of a notification that you get unless you tap on it. So it will show like where that application is or where that notification is from, but it won't show the contents of that notification until you tap on it. There's also a couple of settings in night mode that you might want to change. So night mode in general is nice. So you get that red tint, you know, when you have low ambient lighting, when it's dark out or when it's dark in your room, but you also have motion to wake right here. So you might want to turn this off because there are sometimes some false triggers. So this will turn on the display when motion is detected at night. So if you have a cat or a dog that gets up and moves right in front of you, that may turn on. So you might want to turn that off. It is cool to have when it works, but it is something to know that is there. So you can change that if you want to. So there is actually one other Safari feature that I did not cover earlier, and this is a pretty hidden one, but you might want to change it. So if you go into your settings, and let's go back into the Safari settings real quick, and then go all the way down to the bottom. And down here we have advanced. Go into advanced, and under privacy, we have a new section here that says advanced tracking and fingerprinting protection. If you go into that, this is set by default to private browsing, but you can either turn this off or you can change it to all browsing. And what this feature does in general is it will basically protect your digital fingerprint. It will make it harder for companies to access your digital fingerprint, which is what they use to track you online with great precision. And this also deletes tracking IDs from URLs and stops trackers from following your whole browsing journey. Now, the next setting you might want to change has to do with the mental well-being section inside of the health application. So if you go into mental well-being and then go to state of mind, this is where you can log your mood on a daily basis. I find this to be very useful, but the setting here is if you go all the way down to the bottom and go to options. From here, you have toggles where you can set reminders for when you want to be notified to log your mood for the day. So if you want it to be during your day, end of day, you could turn that on or off. And you could also set custom reminders at a certain time throughout the day. You could have multiples here as well. I find these to be very helpful because I'll just simply forget to log my mood for the day if I don't have these turned on. So you should definitely consider turning those on, or if you don't like it at all, you can turn them off there as well. The next setting you want to change is one of my favorite under the radar changes in iOS 17. And this is all related to focus modes, which I cannot function on my phone without focus mode. So if you don't have those set up, you may as well go ahead and set those up right now. So anyway, in settings, if you go into focus and then go into one of your focus modes and then go to options, right here we have a new selection for silence notifications while locked or always. So this means that your notifications will not be silenced if you are actively on your phone. So since mine is set here to while locked, that means that my notifications are only going to be silenced when my phone is locked. When I'm on my phone and actively using it, I will see notifications as usual, as if I were not even in a focus mode. The next setting you absolutely need to change in iOS 17 is offline maps. You want to go ahead and download offline maps by going into the Maps app and tapping your name up in the top right corner, and then go to offline maps. From here, you want to go ahead and download a new map. So once you tap on download new map, you will get the option to select where you want to download that map from, like which section of that specific city. And once you have that section of the city or state saved, you can go ahead and tap on download, and it will start downloading that specific area of the map for offline usage. Now, also down here, you have some toggles that you might want to consider turning on or off as well, like only using offline maps. You can turn that on to only use offline maps, even when you have an internet connection. So that could be great for, if you're traveling without a power source and you want to save as much battery as possible, you can do that so you don't have to rely on, internet connection draining your battery while navigating. You also have automatic updates if you want to automatically update the maps in case like a street light gets added or a street name gets changed. And you do have optimized storage as well, where it automatically removes downloaded maps that you have not used in a while. And then the final thing you might want to change in iOS 17 is related to portrait mode photos. So if you take a portrait mode shot, you will notice in iOS 17, if you go to edit that, you can now see this little yellow square, and that is highlighting the subject of the photo. So if you want your portrait subject to be something different than what you originally shot, you can now change that on the fly after the photo was taken in iOS 17. So if I want my Mac back here to be the subject, I could simply tap on that now, and now all of a sudden that is the main focus and everything around it is blurred out. That is awesome. So those are 24 of the first settings that you need to change and the first kind of things that you just need to know about with iOS 17 after installing it on your device. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, I would appreciate if you gave it a thumbs up. Also, make sure to subscribe for a lot more iOS 17 coverage. And if you haven't already seen my other iOS 17 videos, including my 2-hour-long video showing everything new in iOS 17, you can check those out up in the cards and down in the description below. And of course, if you made it this far into the video, there's no reason not to subscribe. So you may as well go ahead and hit that subscribe button down below if you've not done so already. But anyways, guys, thanks again for watching, and I'll see you soon.